I learned on one specific occasion that when I was asked by my boss to attend a networking event, and to dress cute, it was actually an orchestration by him and Dan Snyder to put me in a compromising sexual situation. I learned that placing me strategically by the owner at a work dinner after this networking event was not for me to discuss business, but to allow him, Dan Snyder, to place his hand on my thigh under the table. I learned how to discreetly remove a man's unwanted hand from my thigh at a crowded dinner table at a busy restaurant to avoid a scene. I learned that job survival meant I should continue my conversation with another coworker rather than to call out Dan Snyder right then in the moment. I also learned later that evening how to awkwardly laugh when Dan Snyder aggressively pushed me towards his limo with his hand on my lower back, encouraging me to ride with him to my car. I learned how to continue to say no, even though a situation was getting more awkward, uncomfortable, and physical. I learned that the only reason Dan Snyder removed his hand from my back and stopped pushing me towards his limo was because his attorney intervened and said, Dan, this is a bad idea. A very bad idea, Dan.
That's Tiffany Johnston, former employee of the Washington Commanders, making allegations yesterday in a hybrid roundtable before the U.S. House Committee on Oversight and Reform after the hearing. And there were 5 or 6 former employees who testified. Her testimony was the one piece that went directly at Snyder and made allegations against him. Snyder issued a statement saying that the allegations leveled against me personally in today's roundtable, many of which are well over 13 years old, are outright lies. I unequivocally deny having participated in any such conduct at any time and with respect to any person. You know, something I pointed out last night on PFT. If you say that the allegations are outright lies, you don't need to throw in the many of which are 13 years old. If they're outright lies, they're outright lies. It just feels like you're trying too hard to shout down this allegation by saying, oh, it happened a long time ago. Well, first of all, it doesn't matter. If it's true, it doesn't matter when it happened. And second of all, if it's outright lies, it doesn't matter when it happened either. But anyway, that's Snyder's unsworn testimony. Tiffany Johnston, sworn testimony at Congress, making that accusation. And Peter, you know, my first thought yesterday when I juxtaposed those two is this is exactly why Beth Wilkinson should have created a report. Because if there are allegations like that and there were denials by people involved, it's for the lawyer to say, this one's true, this one's not true. I corroborated this one. I wasn't able to corroborate this one. This witness seemed not to be credible based upon choice of words, demeanor, etc. I asked some tough questions. I didn't get satisfactory responses. There are ways for a trained and seasoned and experienced lawyer to ferret through competing versions and come to a conclusion. That's what she was hired to do. That's what I thought. If you're going to investigate it, you're not just going to investigate it and say, well, she says he did it and he says he didn't. There's the end of the investigation. You're investigating it to get to the bottom of it. So that's why we need to have the report. Because there surely are many more instances like that where allegations are made against specific individuals, maybe Dan Snyder, maybe not, who knows, they're not giving us the report. We need to know what the accusations were, and we need to know whether or not Beth Wilkinson decided that the accusations are credible and accurate, or whether or not they are, to use Snyder's term, outright lies. It's that simple. Now, the league says this is a new allegation, that Tiffany Johnston didn't cooperate with the investigation. And I say to that, well, why in the hell wouldn't she have? She's sitting there in an open hearing telling her story. So that's another one that we got to get to the bottom of. Number one, are they telling the truth that she wasn't involved? Or number two, was she involved? And we'll never know because they're never going to tell us anything about the investigation.
Mike, I'm reminded of something we said on this show probably months ago when, clearly when the Snyder plaintiffs came forward, or the WFT plaintiffs came forward, and the NFL got away without issuing any report on this. And this was spoken yesterday by one of the attorneys for the plaintiffs. Are you seriously telling me that you can issue a 200-page report on possibly deflated footballs in 2015 with the New England Patriots, and a 0-page report when it comes to an owner and his team and his franchise being charged with some of the most heinous crimes of the Goodell commissionership. And that says it all to me. Why in the world the NFL didn't have to issue any sort of lengthy report about what happened in Washington. It just smells. The whole thing just smells. And the NFL's basic point to this point anyway, and Goodell certainly is going to be asked about it again next week, and I'm sure he'll say the same thing. Hey, all of these people were provided anonymity when we did the interviews with them, so we don't want to break the bond, break the accord we had with these people who came forward. But clearly, without any doubt, there are enough women who came forward that if, let's say, and I don't know how many women Beth Wilkinson interviewed with this, but clearly if you have to eliminate, let's say, 4 of them, and the rest of them are willing to come forward and to be called Jane Doe 1 through 37, in the course of this report, to me, that is what is important right now. And for the NFL to continue to say that they're not going to make Wilkinson's report, or they're not going to have Wilkinson write a report, I think is stonewalling.
Let's underscore how disingenuous, and as I said yesterday, disingenuous is a fancy way of saying lying your ass off. When Roger Goodell, with all due respect, and I understand that he gets paid $65 million a year to be the person who stands there and peddles this crap, it's crap. The idea that we have some of these employees who request anonymity, so in order to protect an undetermined and undisclosed number of employees who have requested anonymity, we are applying a cloak of secrecy to everything that was developed. Every fact, every allegation, every witness, every person, because there is some number of employees, we're not going to tell you how many, some number of employees wanted this. That is completely bastardizing the reality here. They are taking the legitimate concerns of some and turning it into a human shield. That's what they're doing. They are using this handful of individuals, or however many it is. Maybe it's a lot. They're using it as a human shield to hide everything. And Peter, you nailed it with Jane Doe, John Doe. It's very easy to do. When the Andrew Cuomo report came out after the NFL pulled the fast one on July 1 and dumped this news right on the front end of the 4th of July weekend and managed to get through to the other side with no one saying anything about it, and but for the John Gruden emails being leaked to take him down, this never would have gotten a second life. That is the appropriate use of irony. I never quite know how to use it, thanks to Alanis Morissette. That is ironic that the NFL managed to hide everything. And then when they decided to dip into that well of 650,000 documents to take down John Gruden, allegedly, it all blew up in their faces. That is ironic, I think. I'm still not sure. But Peter, my point is this. And there was a podcast, the Real Sports with HBO podcast, the night before this Congressional Roundtable, hybrid roundtable. I want to get it right. I still don't know what hybrid roundtable is, but that's what it was. They asked individuals about this, and they were providing information, some of them to HBO with different names. But they still said, we wanted this all to come out. We just didn't want our names attached to it. It's very easy to do. And I was mentioning the Andrew Cuomo thing. That came out after the initial whatever it was the NFL did on July 1, trying to slip this through the cracks. And in the Cuomo report, there were certain of the individuals who had their names changed. That's all you have to do. And anytime that comes up, it just gets harumphed away by the commissioner. And look, he's earning his $65 million. I mean, he's, remember the Wonder Woman had those cuffs and, that's what he's doing. Those questions come, and he's banging those bullets away left and right. He's very good at it. It's one of the reasons why he gets so much money. But we're here to tell you we get a far less than that amount of money to say it's bullcrap. And conveniently, not for him, but for the media, he's available next Wednesday. We'll see what kind of questions he gets. We'll see how he deals with them. But, the problem is, Peter, until you get somebody under oath, like we talked about earlier with Bill Belichick, until you're in a position where you can get a judge on the line and say, hey, judge, will you please ask this person to finally answer the question? There really isn't anything you can do. You ask him the question, he gives an unsatisfactory answer. When have you ever seen in a press conference somebody say to the person, I'm sorry, that's an unsatisfactory answer, especially in a situation like this where you have to get invited to participate, and if you piss them off sufficiently, you get frozen out for good. They own the platform. This isn't a true public press conference. This is them inviting in a certain number of people to ask questions, and if you cross the line, you ain't never getting back in.
Mike, I think the biggest question about not only the process, but about what we're going to learn about this is that, Roger Goodell now has 6 days to sort of figure out exactly how he's going to say why he's not going to issue a report on the Washington situation. There's no question about it. He's going to say exactly what he said in some form at his last press briefing. I think it was the New York fall meetings when he was asked about it, because there were two of the plaintiffs or two of the complainants sitting in the lobby right near where he held his press conference, basically talking to anybody who would listen about why this was such an unjust process. And it'll be a very polished statement, and it'll be something like he's already said. We promised everybody anonymity. It's not fair, blah, 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 blah. And that's what'll be said. Maybe there will be a follow-up, and he will basically repeat what he just said. And look, it doesn't matter how many ways the question is answered. He knows how he is going to answer, or is asked. He knows how he's going to answer it. And Mike, it's just like 5 years ago, if you had asked Roger Goodell about sports gambling, he would have said it is the biggest scourge facing professional sports today. And if you asked him about gambling, he would say, oh, it's a wonderful way for everybody to be involved more totally with our game. And so, look, just follow the money. That's it. Follow the money, Mike.
Here's the quote I want to share with you. We got to take a break, but when the individuals, and there are 4 of them, former Washington employees who spoke to HBO's Real Sports podcast the other night with different names, they were asked if they want their versions to be made public, even though their names were changed. And they said, one of them said, of course we want it to be public. That's the entire point. Why would we want this done and just not even gone to print? We want this to be made public so that something can then be done fairly and justly about it. They just don't want their names out there. They want their names to be protected. That doesn't mean make everything secret, make everything hidden. So, and the other thing, and then we do have to go to break. I almost feel like at some level, the NFL, with all these storms that are brewing now, Washington football team, Brian Flores lawsuit alleging pattern of racial discrimination against coaches and GMs who are black, and the Stephen Ross $100,000 bar. I almost feel like they gotta throw the mob somebody. And if this really is a new accusation made by Tiffany Johnston that the league wasn't previously aware of, they say they'll take appropriate action. You know what the appropriate action is? You have Beth Wilkinson investigate it and report back on whether or not Johnston is telling the truth or Snyder is telling the truth. And if Snyder is telling the truth, or if Johnston, is telling the truth, not only did Snyder do something that he shouldn't have done, he lied about it. And I feel like this could go very badly for Daniel Snyder, because he could be the sacrificial lamb. Like, we got to do something. There's too much going on here. We got to show the people that we are willing to hold people accountable. And this Tiffany Johnston thing falls into our lap. Well, it's time to take down Daniel Snyder. I don't know that it's going to go that far, but if they are looking for someone, this fell into their lap, supposedly, out of the blue yesterday, and they didn't previously know about it, Peter.
And, look, I know a lot of people who are fans of this franchise, or who once were fans of this franchise, who now they don't care anymore. it has gone to the apathy stage with this team. They're embarrassed by the team. They're super embarrassed by the owner. And I think they would only come back, honestly, to their former level, to the Joe Gibbs, Bobby Beathard level of, Washington craziness at games. I think they'll only go back if they change the owner. And so I've just been mind-boggled by the NFL protecting so strongly and stridently either the worst, second, third worst owner in the league, whose fan base hates him, and who I need to understand why the NFL is so defensive about Daniel Snyder. It boggles my mind.
My theory very quickly, and then I promise we will break. I believe, Peter, based upon everything I've seen, everything I've read, everything I've heard, I believe they're hiding all of this evidence because when it's released, if it's ever released, the NFL will face very difficult questions about what it knew, when it knew it, and why it failed to protect these individuals as the misconduct was still happening and the league was aware of it. That's what they're trying to avoid, because that's dangerously close to the NFL had the Ray Rice elevator video before it became public, and that's the kind of thing that can bring the whole house down.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.